you wake up, walk into the bathroom, stare into the mirror, and drag a piece of razor-sharp steel across your face. You probably don't even think about it. It's just grooming. It's just an annoyance before you go to work, something you do to look professional. But what you are actually doing is participating in a blood-soaked, parasite-ridden survival tactic that goes back over 100,000 years. Think about the human body. Every single thing we have evolved for a reason. Hair is no different. For early human males, a thick beard wasn't a fashion statement. It was armor. It protected the face from freezing winds during the ice ages. It shielded the skin from the blistering sun. It trapped moisture. And maybe most importantly, it made the jawline look bigger, wider, and much more intimidating to rival males. Biologically, the beard was a tool for dominance and survival. So, why on earth would you take a sharp rock and scrape it off? To understand that, you have to imagine the reality of living in a cave 50,000 years ago. You're huddled around a fire with 20 other people. You sleep shoulder to shoulder on animal skins. You don't bathe for weeks at a time. And in that warm, damp, crowded environment, a silent enemy takes over. Parasites. Lice, ticks, and fleas didn't just make you itch. They carried diseases that could wipe out an entire tribe. And hair is a parasite's absolute favorite hiding place. A thick, unwashed beard was basically a luxury resort for lice. When a louse bites you, it drinks your blood. When hundreds of them do it at the same time, the itching becomes a torturous, maddening agony that you cannot escape. You can't wash them out with water. You can't just brush them away with your hands. There was only one permanent solution. You had to destroy the habitat. But you don't have a safety razor. You don't have warm shaving cream. What you have is the brutal reality of Stone Age ingenuity. The earliest evidence of shaving doesn't involve blades at all. It involves shells. Ancient men living near coastlines would take 2 clam shells, use the edges like a pair of pliers, clamp down on the facial hair, and physically rip it out by the root, one agonizing patch at a time. Imagine the sheer willpower it took to sit by a fire and pull the hair from your own face until it bled, just to stop the itching. Later, they figured out a better way: obsidian, volcanic glass. When chipped perfectly, an obsidian edge is actually sharper than a modern steel surgical scalpel. Archaeologists have found stone and obsidian scrapers dating back roughly 30,000 years, specifically designed for removing hair. These early humans would wet their faces with animal fat or tree sap, take a razor-sharp piece of volcanic rock, and literally scrape the hair off their skin. It was incredibly dangerous. It left deep scars. One slip of the hand could slice your jugular vein and kill you in minutes. But they did it anyway, because a cut on the jaw was better than a disease-carrying insect laying eggs next to your mouth. But as human beings evolved, the reason for shaving shifted. It went from fighting parasites to fighting each other. Fast forward to 331 BC, the Battle of Gaugamela. Alexander the Great is about to face the massive Persian army. His men are terrified. They are vastly outnumbered. The Persian chariots have literal scythes attached to the wheels. But Alexander isn't just worried about the enemy's weapons. He's worried about his own men's faces. Before the battle, Alexander issued a strict, non-negotiable command to his Macedonian generals. Every single soldier must shave his beard completely clean. Why? Because in hand-to-hand combat, a beard is a handle. When you are packed into a phalanx, pushing against enemy shields, breathing in the dirt and the blood, the man in front of you only needs to reach out, grab a fistful of your beard, and pull your head down. Once your head is pulled forward, your neck is exposed. A sword goes in, and you're dead. Alexander realized that facial hair was a fatal tactical flaw. By forcing his army to shave, he eliminated a weapon the enemy didn't even know they had. The Macedonians won that battle, and Alexander's clean-shaven look became the ultimate symbol of a warrior. To be shaven wasn't just clean. It meant you were a soldier. It meant you were lethal. But while the Greeks were shaving for war, another civilization had already turned shaving into an absolute obsession: the ancient Egyptians. If you lived in ancient Egypt, hair was disgusting. The climate was incredibly hot, and dirt, sand, and sweat clung to anything it could. To the Egyptians, body hair was synonymous with impurity, disease, and poverty. If you were a peasant working in the fields, you might have some stubble. But if you were nobility, and especially if you were a priest, you removed every single hair on your body. The Greek historian Herodotus visited Egypt and was stunned by what he saw. He wrote that Egyptian priests shaved their entire bodies, their heads, their faces, their arms, their legs, every 3 days. They used bronze razors, pumice stones to grind away the stubble, and harsh hair removal pastes made of quicklime and arsenic. They were so terrified of lice and physical impurity entering the sacred temples that they made absolute hairlessness a legal requirement for approaching the gods. But here is where the story takes a wildly ironic turn. The Egyptians believed that natural hair was filthy, but they also believed that their gods had beards. The god of the underworld, Osiris, was always depicted with a long, tightly braided beard curving up at the end. So, what do you do when your religion demands you be completely hairless, but also demands your pharaoh look like a bearded god? You fake it. The Egyptians invented the false beard, called a pastiche. Pharaohs would spend hours agonizingly scraping every natural hair off their faces with dull bronze blades, only to immediately tie a fake beard made of braided gold or dyed sheep's wool around their ears before stepping outside. The fake beard was such a crucial symbol of divine power that even female pharaohs wore them. When Hatshepsut ruled Egypt as one of its most powerful female pharaohs, she wore the golden false beard to project absolute authority. They literally went through the physical pain of shaving, just to wear a detachable, hygienic version of the exact thing they just cut off. And then came the Romans. For the Roman Empire, shaving wasn't just about hygiene, and it wasn't just for combat. It was psychological warfare. It was brand identity. Look at a map of the Roman Empire at its peak. It stretched from the burning deserts of North Africa to the freezing, fog-covered forests of Britannia. And all along those borders were tribes the Romans called barbarians. The root of the word barbarian traces back to people who babbled in foreign tongues, but to the Romans, the visual difference was just as important. The tribes of Germania and Gaul wore long, unkempt beards. They looked wild, untamed, unpredictable. To a Roman, the clean-shaven face was the ultimate symbol of civilization. It meant discipline. It meant order. It meant you belonged to the greatest empire on earth. The Roman general Scipio Africanus, the military genius who defeated Hannibal, was the one who truly popularized the daily shave in Rome. He had his personal barbers scrape his face smooth every single morning, and the rest of the Roman elite blindly followed his lead. Barbershops, called tonstrinae, became the absolute centers of Roman social life. Men would spend hours there gossiping and networking. But getting a shave in ancient Rome was a terrifying experience. There was no soap. There was no soothing shaving cream. Just water and a blade made of iron, which dulled incredibly fast. The barber would sharpen his razor on a whetstone, lean you back, and go to work. The Roman poet Martial famously wrote that the barber's razor left so many scars on a man's face that he looked like a veteran of 1,000 battles. It was so dangerous that the scholar Pliny the Elder wrote about a specific medical plaster made of spiderwebs and oil used purely to stop the massive bleeding from terrible shaving cuts. But Roman men endured the pain anyway. In fact, a young Roman man's first shave was a deeply sacred religious ceremony called the depositio barbae. They would gather their entire family, carefully shave the soft first hairs of their adult beard, place the hair in a small gold or silver box, and dedicate it to a god. The Emperor Nero famously kept his first beard clippings in a golden box studded with pearls, dedicated to the god Jupiter. Shaving became the literal line that separated the civilized man from the beast. When a Roman suffered a terrible tragedy, when someone they loved died, or when they faced a massive financial ruin, they would stop shaving. Growing a beard was a visual symbol of deep mourning. It was a public sign that your life had descended into chaos, and you had temporarily left civilization behind. It's crazy to think about how this one simple act changed the world. For roughly 300,000 years, humans walked the earth with thick, protective hair on their faces. It kept them warm in the ice and snow. It caught the blood of the animals they hunted. It made them look fierce in a world that wanted to kill them. But then, a man in a cave realized his face was crawling with parasites, picked up a piece of shattered volcanic glass, and made the first cut. Then Alexander the Great realized a clean jawline couldn't be grabbed by an enemy soldier in the heat of battle. Then the ancient Egyptians decided that hair belonged on the floor, not on a priest offering sacrifices to the gods. And the Romans turned the violent scrape of an iron blade into the defining mark of human civilization. Every single time you stand in front of that bathroom mirror, applying foam to your face, you aren't just getting ready for a meeting. You are participating in an unbroken chain of human history. You are doing what the pharaohs did before they spoke to the gods. You are doing what the Roman elites did to prove they weren't savages. You are doing what Alexander's soldiers did before they marched out to conquer the known world. You took a biological defense mechanism that took millions of years of evolution to build, and you scraped it off because human ingenuity and culture decided we didn't need it anymore. And just like those early men who bled in caves to get the lice out of their skin, we keep doing it day after day, blade after blade.